Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us again as we restart our Google Hangouts on Air here at SIT Study Abroad. And we're doing it a bit differently. Just to remind everyone, my name's Ian, and I'm the admissions counselor for SIT programs in Africa and the Middle East. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Craig Hinson and Karin Zalen. Karin, do you want to introduce yourself for a minute?
Yes. Hi, I'm Karin Nzelen, Admissions Counselor for Africa South of the Sahara, IHP programs, and Australia.
Thank you very much, Karin. And Craig, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Craig Hinton, and I'm the admissions counselor for Europe, IHP Human Rights, and our Brazil programs.
Excellent. Thank you both very much for joining me this afternoon. Just for those who are tuning in or watching this later on, what we're doing here is we have a program in Craig's portfolio, the Switzerland Health Program, that is very popular and usually comes and fills very rapidly. So we want to make sure everyone who's interested in public health and studying abroad in Switzerland may be aware of some of the other alternatives. So Karin, whose camera unfortunately is not working very well today, will start now with us talking about some of her public health options there.
Thank you, Ian. So my public health programs at this point is the Kenya program, Urbanization, Health and Human Rights, as well as the IHP Health program. So the IHP programs as well, the health programs fill up really fast, and I have about 3 or 4 spots available on that program right now for the fall of 2017. And these programs travel to, I have 2 IHP health programs. One of them goes to India, Brazil, South Africa, and begins in Washington, D.C. And the second one goes to Argentina, Vietnam, South Africa, and begins in Washington, D.C. as well. So these are international honors programs, and of course get to fill up fast. I, however, have a few spots for the fall. But my Kenya Urbanization, Health and Human Rights program actually has a lot of spots for the semester, and I fortunately just came back from a visit to Kenya 2 weeks ago. The program is very interesting, and it's, I would say, generally a public health direction or a public health focus, because when you think about urbanization, when you think about human rights, and when you think about health, the program, the projects that the program actually gets to visit will give you a link between these 3 directions. Think about a community that is pushed to the outskirts of the city as a result of rapid urbanization. They live in slums. They have no voice in their community. So basically, of course, their human rights are hit on hard. So they are definitely affected already by urbanization, human rights. And of course, considering their living conditions and abilities, their health is definitely affected. So this is just to give you an idea of the link between urbanization, human rights, and health in the Kenya program. The Kenya program also has a comparative angle because they get to go to Rwanda and Uganda. And in Rwanda, they get to look at the anatomy of the genocide, which means Rwanda before, during, and after the genocide, see how fast urbanization has come into Kigali, their very progressive health process, considering where Uganda is coming from after the genocide and where they are at today. They have a lot to compare to Kenya. And then in Uganda, they get to visit briefly for a little excursion after their independent studies and internships in the little area called Jinja. And it's just a beautiful area, and they get a chance again to see a little comparative angle, considering that they have been to Rwanda and Kenya by this time. Thank you. That's just a little bit about the programs. In addition to that, we do have a little summer program, which is actually Madagascar traditional medicine and public health as well. So you actually get a chance to get 5 or 6 weeks in Madagascar during the summer, and I'm still enrolling. Actually, enrollment closes in a couple of weeks for that program in Madagascar. Again, still around public health. Thank you.
And please make sure you reach out to any of us that you may be, if you're interested in one of our programs. So before you go, Karin, I have a couple questions for you,
Sure.
just to elaborate a tiny bit.
Mhm.
You mentioned you still had some spots left on your IHP health programs,
Right.
but I would assume that there are probably less than 5 spots left. So when would you recommend students to get in touch with you by if they are interested in that?
I would recommend at least talk to me by the end of this week or earliest by mid next week. So I would say Wednesday next week, which we're talking here April 5th at the latest.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
And I'm sure Craig would be able to put any of the students that he reaches out to in touch with us if they're interested.
Thank
Now,
you, Ian.
one last question for you, Corinne, and then I'll go over to Craig, is a Kenya program. Kenya is really high on a lot of people's travel itineraries for
Mhm.
Africa. It's a country everyone knows about.
Mhm.
So what makes our Kenya program there unique? Because if I understand correctly,
Mhm.
you're not based in Nairobi or on the
Yeah.
coast the entire time. You actually
Right.
head the other direction.
Mhm. So basically, the Kenya program has done a lot of moves. Thanks for that question, Ian. The program has moved from, we used to go to Mombasa, we used to be in the coastal area, but you know about all the insecurity situations that have happened in recent years in Kenya. So we have made a shift and a move basically from that region, and we are living in the beautiful coastal area around around Lake Victoria. It's actually a beautiful growing town called Kisumu. That's where our SIT program is based. However, students still get a chance to be in Nairobi. And in Nairobi, they work in partnership or are in the premises of the American University campus in Nairobi. And the program in Kisumu actually has a great partnership with KEMRI, which houses the CDC Research Foundation. And in this environment, or in the CDC Research Foundation, students actually get to experience all the different research components that the CDC carries out, actually around TB, HIV, and AIDS, forgotten or ignored or somehow out of the spotlight, tropical diseases like malaria, like stuff that you pick from water, and airborne diseases and things like that. And they have really awesome equipment. There is a huge international presence in Kisumu, because Kisumu is the hub for a lot of international organizations in Kenya. It's a really conducive environment, beautiful weather, and a lot to see.
And Lake Victoria there is a beautiful part of the world as well. I was in Jinja last year when I visited our programs in Uganda.
Mhm.
So thank you very much, Corinne. I'm going to switch over to Craig now, because I know along the lines of public health, besides his Switzerland program, he has another program in his portfolio, but I don't think it's in Europe.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Right. Right. Thanks, Ian. So the other program that I have in my portfolio that deals with public health is our Brazil Public Health Race and Human Rights program based in Salvador, Brazil, which is in the northeastern part of Brazil. And students are looking at the intersections of racial dynamics and how it plays out in terms of access to healthcare, general well-being overall, healing, spirituality, and overall looking at marginalized communities, indigenous populations, as well as, of course, the very large and dominant Afro-Brazilian population, which makes up the majority population in Salvador. So students will be interacting with NGOs, university professors, activists, community groups and organizations that are all looking to improve basic services and access to healthcare. And you'll be looking at the Brazilian healthcare system in general. You'll be looking at it from both the contemporary perspective of what's happening right now politically and economically that's affecting the Brazilian healthcare system, access to health, and you'll also be looking at the role of colonialism and its impact on Brazil and its legacy. So you'll have all of those topics and issues that you'll be looking at, and certainly many more, as all of our programs are very interdisciplinary. And all of this is based in the neighborhood of Barra, Salvador. So it's right on the beach. It's really nice. I've been there, so I can certainly speak more extensively about it if you would like. One interesting thing about it is that it's a very student-dominated neighborhood, and it's also home to the LGBT community as well, which may be of interest to some of you. And at the end of the program, during the last 4 weeks, instead of the traditional research project, there is the opportunity to do a community development project, which is essentially you find an organization with the help of the local staff in the program, and you get to shadow as well as work with a specific group or organization or business that's dealing with one of the major program themes, whether that has to do with race or human rights, or the very dominant focus certainly of the general program is health, access to health, healthcare delivery, and things along that line. So as an example, so it's not so ambiguous. One of our former students was interested in soccer, and that was one of many factors that led to him applying to Brazil. And as a passion and interest to him, he ended up stumbling upon an organization in Salvador that actually looks to interact with young girls and teach them how to play soccer, as a way to also prevent sexual violence against women in general. So that is one of many examples and topics that you could certainly be looking at when you're thinking about doing the community project, and certainly you'll be given some direction and guidance as well when you're about to undertake that study.
Well, thank you very much for that very succinct explanation of the program. And Brazil is always a country that absolutely fascinates me. So I hope a lot of the students who are interested in Switzerland will at least give Brazil a second glance. Now, of course, I don't want to be left out here because I got some public health programs too. The first one I want to mention before we go today is my Jordan Refugees Health and Humanitarian Action Program. It's based in Amman in Jordan, in West Amman, in Abdun Circle, and you work with NGOs, international NGOs, and community-based organizations to really look at healthcare on the ground. But for those of you that were interested in Switzerland, this program also goes and spends an international excursion in Geneva, Switzerland. So you can really see both ends of the health access spectrum, because you go to Geneva-based organizations such as the World Health Organization and UNHCR in order to hear about the policy making from the top down that affects organizations that you have seen on the ground there in Amman. And for my next program, we're going to go all the way to the bottom of the African continent in Durban, South Africa. Durban is the largest city in KwaZulu-Natal, and it is a community health and social policy program. Again, this is a very grassroots program, but it's a unique situation because under apartheid in South Africa, there were 4 different health services there. And officially now, there's one. They took the 4 racial classifications and moved it into one healthcare service. But in practice, there may be 4 again. But instead of it being European, colored, Indian, and Black, it is now public, private, rural, and urban. So it is a very unique opportunity for people who are interested in development and public policy and healthcare for a chance to get out there on the ground and see how policies and community health is both preached and practiced in one of the fastest growing economies on the African continent. That's it for me. Please feel free to reach out to Craig, who I believe is going to be sending this video out. And you can always leave comments too below here in regards to what you would like to hear more about. Thanks very much, Karin. Craig, would you like to say a final word?
Sure, yeah. So, as a final summation of everything here, these are certainly a few programs that we offer that deal with public health, but we also have a more extensive list as well located on our website, and we would certainly be more than willing to discuss those programs with you as well.
Thank you guys for including me on this call. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to talk to students, and I'll be happy to speak one-on-one to people to go in more depth. And as you can tell, of course, when you talk about the programs in general, everything sounds ambiguous, but I'll be happy to receive a phone call or an email to be able to explain in further detail. Thank you.
The same goes for me. Thank you very much for Karin for those last words, and I wish you all a good afternoon.
Thank you.